I'm going to treat all of you adults like teenagers until Pastor shows up. So hopefully you're feeling at least young and fit. Proverbs chapter 5. Proverbs chapter 5. We have 23 verses. 23 verses. This is how the teens do it upstairs. How many teens do we have?
4, 5.
And Bethany, oh, she's going to get candy. Okay, that'll be all right. That's all right. So how many are we going to break it into? Everyone reads 3, except for one who only gets 2. All right, that's terrible. All right. We're not going to do that. So just going to say we're not going to do that. Okay. So Proverbs chapter 5. We're going to start with Mia because why not? And 3, and then we'll move across. So loudly for everyone to hear.
My son, attend unto my wisdom and bow thine ears to my understanding, that thou mayest regard discretion and that thy lips may keep knowledge. For the lips of a strange woman droppeth honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil.
But her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps take hold on hell. As thou shouldest ponder the path of life, her ways are movable, that thou canst not know them.
Hear me now, therefore, O ye children, depart not from the words of my mouth. Remove thy way far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house. Lest thou give thine honor unto others, and thy years unto the cruel.
Let strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of a stranger. And thou mourn at the last, when thy flesh and thy body are consumed, and say, how have I hated instruction, and my heart is despised reproof.
You want to try and read it, Luke? I'll help you if you need.
And have not obeyed thy voice, and my teacher, or not inclined my ear to thine that interested me.
Yeah, that instructed you. Good job.
I was almost in all evil in thy mid of the line,
Send it out.
the unstrained
Close. Ungrub.
uncle, and
Close enough. Congregation.
and as ember.
Assembly. Good job. Good job. Give one more. You can pass back to Jack.
Okay.
All right, Jack, your turn.
Drink waters out of Anastasia spring, and running waters out of Venom. That thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and rivers of water in the streets. Let them be thine own, and not strangers with thee. That thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the way from thee.
Let her be as the loving hind and pleasant grove. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou always ravished with her love. And why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman, and embrace the bosom of a stranger? For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all his ways.
Finish the chapter.
His own iniquity shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sin. He shall die without instruction, and in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray.
All right. Normally, this is where we start going into the various questions, and we'll go back through the passage and we'll read different things and throw that out. But when we go through the chapter, we believe that it's important to understand what the chapter is about. And for most of Proverbs, you're a safe bet with what 2 things? Wisdom, that's one of them. And instruction. Wisdom and instruction. So one of the things that we talk about is first identifying what this chapter is about. So in this one, you've got young people, and trying to encourage them not to be drawn away by the desires of their heart and by the flesh. As you can tell in this chapter, you're dealing with individual here that he's saying don't be drawn away by the strange woman. We have a lot of fun with that. That aspect of it can be twisted probably in ways that it probably shouldn't. But what it's trying to get across to the young man in this situation is to be aware of those things. If that isn't a needed admonition today, one of the biggest problems that we're dealing with among teenagers and among youth is you grow up in church. You hear the message, you hear the various different things, and it becomes a head knowledge. And in many ways, you know all the things that you're supposed to know. You can recite them. You can come back with the details. But once you kind of get out and you're on your own, how much of that has become yours, and how much of that is something that you're kind of like, well, that was good for my mom and dad. That was good for my grandparents. How much of this is a truth that you have come to know in your heart and not just in your head? Starting back at the very beginning of this verse here, guys, help me out. My son, attend unto my what? Wisdom. Whose wisdom is this? I know we're going to get the big spiritual answer here. This is God's wisdom. And it is, but who is giving the advice? To whom? To his son. All right, ladies, that doesn't mean you get to disregard the information. It's still good for you as well. But there's a reason why I believe most of the wisdom and most of the instruction is directed to the son, and in this case, probably the heir apparent to the kingdom. He's trying to get him to focus on something, and that is the wisdom that God gave to Solomon. The wisdom that it takes to not just be like everybody else. This is the son, this is the child of the king. This is the son of the king. And this isn't just any wisdom. This is the kind of wisdom that sets his son apart. My son, attend unto my wisdom and do what? Bow. This is how we get our words in. And bow thine ear to my understanding. What does that mean? Bow mine ear to thine understanding. What do you do when you bow? Oh, there you go. There's a bow. You lean in. What was Pastor talking about this past Sunday when we were dealing with that communication aspect? There was the one where somebody leans in, right? Because they're trying to be careful to hear. That what he is saying here is essentially lean in, hear what I have to say, bow thine ear to my understanding, that thou mayest regard discretion, and that thy lips may keep what? Knowledge. Okay, so as a young man, we've got the understanding, we've got some of the things that we need to take into consideration here is that thou mayest regard what? Discretion. All right, adults, it's your turn. You all get to be the teams. This is a harder word. What is discretion? It's not a trick question, I assure you. What is discretion?
To weigh things and be prudent, wise.
Okay.
Not
I will
just
take
the
that
ability
as
to do that.
that thou mayest regard discretion. A lot of times you'll have somebody who comes to you and they'll share information. They'll share knowledge. And I think a lot of times we like to take that we'll run over here like, hey, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Did you know? One of the fun things that as teachers we get, especially the teachers of young ones, we find out a lot more about what's going on in your house during prayer time than anything else. Everybody wants to raise their hand. Please pray for my dad. He smashed his finger with a hammer. And, oh, really? Yeah, it was terrible. Then they go into telling him all the terrible things that came out of his mouth at that point in time. That thou mayest regard discretion, and that thy lips may keep knowledge. We are getting ready to go into that kind of seedy portion of the chapter, the strange woman. And what we see in this passage here is a father trying to warn his son about what to be looking for, especially when it comes to the member of the opposite sex. Teenagers, y'all need to know about that because it can be a very difficult thing to know who to choose and what to choose and what to look for in a relationship. And this person, you would think, would be easy to identify, right? That strange woman. How do we start off with that description? For the lips of a strange woman drop as
And honeycomb.
What does that mean?
It's going to sound
Sweet words. See, we've studied some of this. So, sweet words. What's the first thing, gentlemen, that you should probably be wary of when you run into the strange woman?
Gotta run.
No. That's the right answer, but that's not necessarily what you should be wary of. What should you be wary of? Sweet words, flattering words. Folks, there are a lot of things that, or a lot of heartache that can be avoided just if you don't get attracted to the sweet words. One of the big things that you will find in issues where people are having problems with their relationship is they don't know how to communicate. Instead of talking to one another, instead of spending time with one another and studying each other, they say the right things, but then they start replacing communication with other things. They start replacing communication with activities. They start replacing communication with physical contact. They start replacing communication with these different types of things. And the sweet words are those things that draws the young man into the relationship. Oh, you're so handsome. Wow, is that a new shirt? Oh, you're so strong, right? Those are the things that he's encouraging them, beware of. The lips of a strange woman drop as an honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. Wow, some of those words, they seem to go down pretty good. Why? Well, because they're intended to. That's exactly what they are intended to do. So if you're looking at the relationship, and this young man brings this young lady home, parents, please pay attention to what is being said one to another. Listen to the words. Are they flattering your son? Are they flattering your daughter? Are they now? There's a difference between encouragement and flattery. I think one of the good things about our teams here is they go out of their way to encourage one another. Kids right here in the team, they're texting right now. Well, not right now because we're in church. But they are texting Joy and Paul away at college and trying to be an encouragement to them. They just came through midterms, and it was taxing. No, that's us. We're in taxing, but they were in midterms, and while they were going through midterms, there were a lot of things that stresses and whatnot that are weighing on them. And every once in a while, to get an encouraging word from your friends back home reminds them that they're not forgotten. Those are the kinds of friends, those are the kinds of activities, that's the kind of character that you are looking for in the individual who is going to be, hopefully, a member of your family someday. So when you were looking for this, look for the difference between the person who flatters versus the person who encourages, the person who builds up. Verse number 4, but her end is bitter as wormwood. I'm not gonna lie, we had to look that up. I know wormwood was like a bitter root, but I wasn't exactly sure what all it was used for. But we looked it up, and in looking that up, it's herbal, right? You take it if you've got an upset stomach and things of that nature. I thought it was something that kind of made you purge, one of those kinds of things. But the fact of the matter is, the end of the flattery is bitterness. It's not good. That's what Solomon's telling his son. That's what Solomon's trying to get across. Hey, this is the end result. This is what happens if you get drawn into this kind of relationship or with these types of individuals. What do they say about these words? Sharp as whoever said sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, was made out of different stuff than me. Because frequently, people's words hurt. Especially if those words come from someone with which you've allowed your heart to be knit. If you've developed a relationship, if you have developed some kind of level of communication with this individual, they have now kind of entered into your circle, your sphere of influence, correct? Yep. And in doing so, that person has a part of who you are. And that's the reason why their words can be like a two-edged sword. They can pierce, they can cut, they can hurt. Folks, we live in a day and age where you get a lot of courage sitting behind a keyboard, don't you? You have your phone and you start blasting your opinion. And you start saying things that are on there. And you may not mean anything by it. But you know what doesn't come across very well online? This is something that I'm preaching to myself about. Sarcasm. Sarcasm is not something that always comes across well online. These types of words, one back and forth to each other. Well, that person knows me. Well, not everybody that knows that person knows you. So be careful with the things that you say, even to individuals who may know better, because there are other individuals who may see that and they may be like, wow, that's rough. You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't talk to people like that. Sharp as a two-edged sword, the Bible said, verse number 5, her feet go down to what? Death. Wow. That's a little dramatic, isn't it? Her feet go down to death. Folks, many a relationship have died. Many a relationship has died because of this. Right here. They got all drawn into the sweet, beautiful things that were being said to them. They got pulled away from the things that they knew were right. Folks, I can't tell you how many relationships started in a church with somebody of like faith. Individuals that grew up the same way that I did. And once they've gone off and gotten into the real person has revealed themselves, one of the things about a marriage relationship, you can't hide a lot of stuff. After a while, the stuff that's down inside of you comes out. Who you are will reveal itself. And over time, you will see some of that selfishness start to render its head. You will see manipulation enter in. And those things that you thought during the dating relationship was really this person interested in you, all of a sudden it's become their ammunition locker. And they go back and they start with, that'll work. And all of a sudden, what happens? You start destroying those relationships. Solomon's like, son, don't do that. Listen to my wisdom. Listen to my understanding. If you will pay attention to these things, it's going to save you in the long run. The end of that flattery is death. Her steps take hold on hell. Folks, there are some things that are worse than that. I know a lot of people who've been in relationships that, and we talked about this, been in relationships where it's like, you know what? I'd be better off dead. That's a terrible place to be. That's a terrible thought to have. But I tell you what, you deal with it daily. You hear people are like, oh wow, this is going on. This is going on. This was said to me. And wow, you need to get out of that. You need to, folks, how about don't get into it? Well, that's easier said than done. Well, not if you're paying attention. Not if you know the difference between flattery and encouragement and truth. You know, is this person drawing you closer to the things of God, or are they pulling you away in the opposite direction? Folks, it's not like this stuff is hidden. If your eyes are open and you're looking for the right things, you will see the red flags. And as hard as it may be, the right thing to do is step in before it becomes a relationship. Or if a relationship is started, you break that off before it becomes something that is going to create issues or pain later on. And it's not easy, but it's right. Her feet go down to death, her steps take hold on hell, lest thou shouldst ponder the path of life. That's that individual I told you is sitting there thinking, I'd be better off dead. I can't live the rest of my life like this, constantly being talked down to or manipulated or lied to. I mean, you stop and you think of some of the prophets. Is it? I want to say it's Homer, and it's not Homer. It's Gomer. You know, the prophet who was told to go and marry a prostitute. Hosea. And then through the course of that, be able to be a living testimony that to the nation of Israel that, hey, your relationship with God is like this. And the relationship that he went through so that he could turn around and tell Israel the situation that they were in. Folks, Solomon's saying, you can avoid that. You don't have to be a part of that. Hear me now, therefore, O ye children, and depart not from the words of my mouth. Remove thy way far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house. Well, pretty self-explanatory there, yeah? Lest thou shouldst ponder the path of life, the ways are movable. Folks, you're never going to tie that person down. You're never going to get truth. It's always changing. The circumstances are always changing. You go to have a discussion, and it starts off here, and, well, do you remember this? Or do you remember that time that you did this? Or always moving around. Always avoiding the situation. Never being able to really pin anything down or to tie things down. Her ways are movable. That's thou canst not hold them. Relationships, folks, you ought to be able to study the other individual. Know the things that they like. Know the things that are important to them. Make them important to you. One of the things that you'll find in a relationship is it goes a lot better when you enjoy some of the same things. You don't have to, I've teased Pastor about fishing. I am not exactly the fisherman, and it's It's not that I don't enjoy eating fish, because I don't, but I can't catch them. You can go out there with dynamite, throw it into the lake, and I'm not going to catch anything but cold. I've had a couple people help me, but in the long run, I enjoy the camaraderie. I enjoy being out there with the people that I'm out there with. And folks, there's a lot to be said for that. I may not necessarily enjoy the activity, but I do enjoy the people that I'm with, the fellowship. It's encouraging. It builds me up. My kids get to laugh at me because Dad missed another one. But it's one of those things that it helps strengthen that relationship. It helps build you up. It puts you in a situation there where, regardless of what's going on, you're going through it together. But if someone's constantly moving around and, well, I like this today, or I like this today, you're never going to be able to establish anything there. You're constantly going to be trying to hit a moving target. It talks about in verse number 7, hear me now, therefore, O ye children, and depart not from the words of my mouth. Remove thy way from her. Now, later on, it talks about don't go down that street. Don't go down the street, right? That the strange woman is at. Folks, you can identify these individuals, and when you see them, what was it that you said, Hudson? Go the other way. Other way. Go the other way. Don't put yourself in the situation. That's one of the biggest problems where we find ourselves falling for the flattery, falling for those circumstances. We're putting ourselves in the position to receive it. We're putting ourselves into a situation there where they are coming to you, and instead of being in the right spot, you're kind of off by yourself. You're able to be isolated. It's one of the things that you will find that a narcissist will do. They will isolate you from everyone else. And then they will keep you there, and then they're going to help destroy all the other relationships while you think that they're helping you. And then once they've destroyed all the other relationships, all of your individuals who can help you through a situation, now it's just the two of you. And now you're going to be attacking each other. And folks, it gets to be a very lonely place to be. And it's destructive. That's why you get to that point where you ponder the path of life. Hear me now, children, therefore, that's verse number 7. Go on to verse number 8. Remove thy way from her, and come not nigh the door of her house. Stay away. Stay away from those things. Well, Pastor Joe, you don't necessarily know what it's like. This happens at school. Where am I supposed to go? This happens when I'm at work. I don't have anywhere else that I can go. Well, try to make sure that you're around a lot of people. That's a cure for a lot of that. Not being in a situation where you're alone. Not being in a situation where your good can be evil spoken of. Not being in a scenario there where these opportunities will present themselves. Now, I understand there are going to be some times where you're going to find yourself where you can't really avoid that. Joseph found himself in that situation, and he did what everyone else should do: run, get out of it, find the way out. Remove thy way far from her, come not nigh the door of her house, lest thou give thine honor unto others. Now, this is where it's important. These relationships. I'm parents. I'm not real big into going into dating, not dating. What are some of the other things? The courtship, those different kinds of things. Don't come to me for that. If you want to research that stuff out, figure out what works best for your family, I strongly encourage you to do so. I teach people to be the right one, and to live your life in accordance with the Word of God, have the right kind of relationship with the Lord, and trust that He will bring the right one along. Heard that at college. What is it? Be the right one, or don't look not be the right one, and God will provide the right one. Something along those lines. And one of the things that you're going to find, lest thou give thine honor unto others. You're going to find people who get into these little relationships. And folks, this can be very destructive in a church, especially among teen departments. This couple's boyfriend and girlfriend this week, and next week they're not. Now this person's dating this person, and this. Our church is too small for all that. Okay, by the grace of God, we have not had any of those types of issues that have popped up. But I tell you what, it can turn people against each other, picking sides and things of that nature. Lest thou give thine honor unto others. You got to be careful who you give your heart to. You got to be careful who you develop these types of relationships, even with your friends. This isn't necessarily relationship type things, but it can be even friend relationships. Folks, look at how your friends treat their parents. How do they talk to their parents? How do they talk to their siblings? How do they talk to their teachers and those who have authority over them? If they are constantly butting heads with their parents, that's not the relationship, friendship or otherwise, that you want to be in. Why? Well, it's only a matter of time before that becomes part of your relationship. If they are drawing you from the things of God, you're not going to be that little thing that drags them back and gets them into serving the Lord. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be the reason why, or they're going to be the reason why you're no longer doing the things that you ought to do. Is it possible that you can encourage someone who's living for themselves and living in sin to come to the Lord? Yeah, absolutely. But that shouldn't be your dating plan. Your dating plan ought not be that one where, you know what, I'm going to go out and date unsaved individuals and things of that nature, and I'm going to lead them to the Lord, and that's going to make everything right. It's not a great plan. You should go into those things with the understanding that is being unequally yoked. What you can do is encourage individuals and tell them the truth of God's Word and live the right. And when they come to you and want to know what's different, now you've got a testimony. It's not just words. They see the difference in your life. They see how you act that out. So as you are developing those types of relationships, be looking for those individuals around you, for those things that are like, you know what? That person speaks kindly to others. That person treats other individuals the way Christ would treat them. He's respectful to his mom and dad. He's respectful to his siblings. That doesn't mean they've got to be perfect and get along. You know, not everybody can be Jack. You know, Jack has never had an argument with any of his siblings. Perfect, wasn't he? Absolutely perfect. Now, folks, if you are expecting that every relationship you're going to have is going to be easy, this person loves the Lord, it's going to be work. I'll tell you right now, if you start identifying issues in people's character, in their conversation, in their actions, it is so much easier to put that person on the, you know what, you're the acquaintance list, than it is to that person that you draw in for counsel, for advice, for relationship, for camaraderie. Those are the things that you've got to be aware of. That helps you choose the right people in your life and to avoid showing up at the door of the individual who's trying to draw you away. Lest thou give thine honor unto others, and thy years unto the cruel. You can spend a lot of time in bad situations, and you will come out of that feeling beaten down. You will come out of that feeling like you have lost more than you've gained. It's the end of an individual who has turned their focus away from the things of God and placed it on the flesh, placed it on their desires. Lest strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of a stranger. Now, I told them that, teenagers, I hope you never experience this, but how many relationships have you seen that have ended in a divorce? And all those things that you've accumulated become the possessions of someone else. All that effort, all that time, all the things that you thought were important. You know what? You're not an island unto yourself. Some of the decisions that you make affect more than just you. Well, she's so beautiful. She loves me. She cares about me. He's so handsome. He holds the door for me. And well, he kicked the dog a couple of times, but I think it was an accident. And then all of a sudden, you start looking back at the things that you've invested in that relationship. You look at the things that have been accumulated, and when it falls apart because it's unstable, all of the things that you've invested now are going to end up going to someone else. And thou mourn at the last when thy flesh and thy body are consumed. There's nothing left. What more do you have to give? Solomon is trying to appeal to the rationale of the son. Stop and think about these things. When you see this, it should warn you. Don't go any further. This is what happens. This is the end result. And thou mourn at the last when thy flesh and thy body are consumed, and say, how have I hated instruction? Folks, a lot of this stuff can be avoided. It can be avoided if you will just listen, if you will just pay attention. God has put counsel in your life. Your parents are there to be counselors. Your friends are not. I know that doesn't sound right, but right now, your friends don't really have any more experience in things of life than you do. Their opinion is nothing more than an opinion. Now, if that friend has gone through something, and that friend is saying, hey, I have gone through this situation, and God revealed this to me, well, he's going to come to you with the truth of God's word, not his own opinion. And that's going to help you. But if it's a situation there where it's like, well, I think you should do this, especially if that counsel goes against the godly counsel that you've already been provided, you don't want that. Put distance between you and that advice. Otherwise, it's going to end poorly. How I've hated instruction and my heart despised reproof. Folks, those individuals who come to you and point out to you that something is wrong, that you need to make some changes, otherwise they don't hate you. It's the exact opposite. They love you enough to come to you and say the things that you need to hear to make some corrective choices in your life so that you don't end up destroyed by the things you thought you wanted. Something my dad taught me. Sometimes you get what you want, but you lose what you have. There are some things that you can go after and you can pursue, and once you've gotten them, realize, wow, this is fire in my bosom. This is not what I thought it was going to be. And you've lost the goodness, the things that God had provided for you and taken care of. And now you've replaced it with this thing. You can't always go back. You can't always go back. And when you do, you're not going to go back the way that you were before. I have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined my ear to them that instructed me. I was almost in all evil in the midst of the congregation and assembly. This one is that one that I really want to draw some attention to. Drink waters out of thine own cistern. I've asked the teenagers what that means, but I want to ask the adults. That's a confusing one. Drink water from your own cistern. First and foremost, what's a cistern? Water storage. Don't go to your neighbor's water storage and drink his water. Is that difficult? Is that hard? No, it's not. But folks, when you start looking into somebody else's life and you start seeing the people that are in their life and the things that are in their life, you get over there and you start getting that thirst for somebody else's water. Doesn't end well. You start creating issues with your own stuff in your own relationships. Drink waters out of thine own cistern, and running waters out of thine own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and rivers of water in the streets. Let them be only thine own, and not strangers with thee. Let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. You want to have a sweet relationship that lasts? Invest in it. Build on it. Make those waters sweet. Make that the place that you want to be. Make that the place that you want to fellowship with. And that is the center of your attention and your focus. Not somebody else's cistern. Not somebody else's stuff. The only reason why you ought to be over there is because they've invited you over for the barbecue. But you don't need to move in. That invitation is only temporary. And it ought to be one of those things where you're coming alongside to edify and encourage and to build up. Let her be as, let's see here, let thy fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Let her be as the loving hind and pleasant roe. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times. And be thou ravished always with her love. You know why people fall in and out of love? Because they don't work at it. They don't work at relationships. And when things become difficult, they just walk away. When things become hard, it becomes that person's fault. When you get to a situation here where things are difficult, I think of the time period that I was down with my dad after hip surgery. My mom's 5'2". She's not big. My dad is at least my height and outweighed me at the time. And there's no way my mom could have helped my dad around. But I tell you what, she'd do anything it takes to make him comfortable. She'd do anything she could do to provide for him. I sat back and I kind of watched my mom taking care of my dad, and here I am just kind of the muscle to kind of help him get from where he needed to go to where he. But my mom was the one that took care of him. There wasn't a whole lot my mom could get back from that because of his physical situation. But the love that I saw between them only convinced me of how much greater it can be. Regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what you're going to be able to get back from that other individual, my parents have invested in one another. I've told my teens this, and some of you adults probably have heard it. I know, William, you've heard it in Sunday school class. I lived at my parents' house up until the time that I was 25. That's when Rochelle and I got married, and we moved out on our own. I never, not even one time, ever heard my dad raise his voice to my mom. Not one time. I've talked to my brothers. My brothers do not remember a time where they ever heard my mom and dad yelling at each other. That's great. That's wonderful. That doesn't mean that they didn't have difficult times or tough things that they had to go through. They just didn't fight in front of anybody. They went and they had conversations with one another. They talked things out. And I'm sure some of those conversations were probably a little heated from time to time. But I tell you what, my mom and dad wanted to make sure that when they were in front of us, they were presenting a unified front and that they always treated each other in a loving way. I don't think that I have ever heard my dad say something derogatory about my mom. And I can tell you, I've never heard my mom say anything derogatory about my dad. Now, there have been some times where it was like, he just can't hear anymore because he's going deaf. But, at the same time, she's never talked him down. If other people are talking about him, I'll tell you what, my mom may be 5'2", but she knows what a spitfire is, and she becomes one. She's protective of my dad. She's protective of that relationship. Folks, it can be so much sweeter. And it only gets sweeter as you invest and build and put time into that relationship. Then why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman? Why would you go somewhere else? Why would you sacrifice all of that investment? Why would you sacrifice that time? Why would you sacrifice the relationship? Why would you sacrifice that beautiful thing that God has blessed you with for something else, for someone else, and embrace the bosom of a stranger? For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all of his goings. Folks, it'll change your life. It'll change your perspective once you realize that you're walking with the God of creation. He's there. He's watching you. He's there to help you. He's there to guide you. But you know what? He's also there when you're not necessarily looking for his guidance. He's also there when you're trying to stay away from the things of God. Why? Well, because he loves you. He wants to draw you back to himself. Take into consideration the things that you're doing, knowing that it's before him. It's not hidden from him. It's not a secret. For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all his goings. His own iniquity shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sin. Folks, there is no bind worse than the one you get yourself into. When you are wrapped up in your own sin, in your own mistakes, and you feel so desperate because there's nothing that you can do to get yourself out of it, his own iniquity shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sins. He shall die without instruction. In the greatness of his folly, he shall go astray. I took up way too much time getting through that entire chapter. But folks, it's important for the teens not to just know the answers. We're going to have a little quiz, and we're going to go up there, and we're going to get the little points put on the board. You know how many of those trophies we brought out here and shown everybody? Just that one little one that they printed that one time. That was pretty neat.
I think
Folks, it really doesn't matter how many of these games we win. If this truth is imprinted on their heart, we've won. The difference that you will see in an individual who has heard and has applied the truth of God's word to their own life is going to show up in the path and the destination. As they are walking on this life and they're putting God first, God is going to start bringing into their way those relationships that are going to benefit them and are going to strengthen them. And when the hard times come, when the difficulty comes, they aren't going to fall. They're going to be able to stand, because instead of living a duplistic lifestyle, they have been living a life that's in accordance with the Word of God. And when you look at their life, you are going to see difficult times. But you're going to see victory in difficult times instead of defeat. Because they put their faith and trust in the things of God. Their relationships are right. The people that they are bringing into your family add to your family, they don't detract from your family. There are too many people having Friendsgiving instead of Thanksgiving with your family. Now, I get it. If you're in an area where your family is far away, doesn't mean you're avoiding them. But I tell you what, there are people who live in the same community and they haven't seen their parents in years because their friends mean more to them than their family. Something went wrong. Somebody decided that this wasn't the path for me. I'm going to go over here. And what has ended up happening? Well, Paul called them shipwrecked. There are a lot of these Christians who grew up in church, who grew up hearing all the right things and doing all the right things, and as soon as they got out on their own, began doing their own thing, and now their life is shipwrecked, and they're looking around like, what happened? What happened? Well, you stopped the relationship with the Lord. You stopped walking with Him. You stopped being around the things of God. You started hanging around with the other. And what happened to the prodigal son? When he had spent up everything that he had and he didn't have anything else to give back, where were they then? How many of those friends came running down the street to hug him? Hey, you loaned me $5. Let me give you that back with interest, right? No, not a single one of them. And when he came to himself in the slop with the pigs, he wanted to go back home because it was better to be a servant in his father's house than where he was. Folks, let this be an encouragement to you. If you know individuals who find themselves in that situation, don't give up on them. Continue to pray, continue to love, continue to be that place that they can come to. Because there's going to be a time when they realize how shipwrecked they are. And their friends who are out there in the mess with them are just going to make it worse, pushing them under the water, pushing them under the waves because they're trying to save themselves. But the truth has been implanted in their heart. God doesn't stop talking. He's constantly going to be that still small voice that says, hey, I know where you can find help. I know where you can find peace. I know how you can get things back on track. Come with me. Follow me. This particular group of teenagers, I believe, is very unique. They're doing that now. They're not waiting until, wow, my life's really a mess. No, they're reaching out and they're looking at each other and they're saying, hey, how can I be an encouragement to you? How are things going? They're talking about the things of God. That's unique, even in churches, even among the youth group. We're not here for the entertainment. We're not here for the glitz and the programs. And the games. It's fun when we have those things, but that's not what it's about. And when we begin to put our faith and our focus on those things, we're going to start seeing the evidence that in the lives of our next generation. Folks, Pastor's been talking about this. We've got a need children's church. We've got a need for new Sunday school teachers. We've got a need for these different kinds of things. To whom will we pass that torch? And what are we doing to help prepare them so that they're ready to receive it? Right now, we've got some that are studying the Word of God and are getting involved, going on the missions trips, and they're doing those different kinds of things and taking those opportunities. Don't let that stop. Don't let that stop, guys. What you are right now, what you're doing right now, is your preparation for what you will be doing later. If you're building a relationship right now with the Lord Jesus Christ and giving on those kinds of things, you will carry that. You're not just going to magically get to 30 and decide, you know what, now it's time to start living for the Lord. This is what I should be doing with my life. It starts there. It's your choice. You're the one that has to develop the discipline. You're the one that has to develop the call. You're the one that has to, and you'll have people encourage you, come alongside of you, tell you you're on the right path, tell you you're on the track. But the choice is yours. And you're the one that has to see that through. Fine. Have a little over. You like? We'll take prayer requests. No? More Jack too?
Yeah, we'll start with the praises.
All you have to do is ask people if they have any prayer requests. Do you have any prayer requests? Brother Dan.